the papers, off the deep end. UK warned of blackouts in winter with disconnect. Apparently, this is a report which the energy companies produce every year, but because obviously this one is more critical because of the sanctions which we've imposed upon Russia, and someone blew the big pipeline, the Nord Stream, up. Who it is, nobody knows. Really? You tell me that? No, I just haven't got a clue. It's just could have been aliens. Anybody could have blown it. Let's be semi-realistic. You've got the two front runners. You've got the Yankee Doodle Dandies, and I would say they are 3-1 on. And you've got the Ruskies, and I would say they are 2-1 on. It's got to be someone that has access to some form of remote operated vehicle, or people with some sort of diving capacity. It's, I'm not 200 foot deep where the pipelines are. So, you know, the amount of satellites that must be going around taking daily photographs of the whole world. You tell me that they don't know the ships that were there in the last 6 months hanging around in these spots. Well, it could be nighttime, you might be able to see them. How long does it take if you've got a vessel and it's got a subsea door on it, and you launch it and it hangs around, and then another ship comes 12 hours later and picks it up? Who knows? We're getting into James Bond type things. All is that these energy restrictions are primarily caused by the West and countries restricting that they want to buy from Russia. Other countries are still buying the oil and gas from Russia. It's just we aren't, which means that it's self-imposed to a certain. Oh, you can't say that. Yeah, you're a Putin puppet. Blah blah blah. Right, fine, okay. If all of these leaders want to support the Ukraine, and it's obviously that they do, and I'm not saying that they shouldn't, then they've got to accept the consequences. Prices have went up. Energy is going to cost more money. The Euro people are running around hiring all of these tankers, these LNG tankers. Ask yourself the question, are these LNG tankers and offloading vessels and the rest of it just sort of just parked up in some harbour somewhere just waiting for this to happen? Or are they on other trades to, I don't know, South America, or more than likely the Far East? If Europe pays more money for them, then somebody else is going to get the short end of the stick, and either they've got to pay more money to keep up, or they're not going to get any LNG. Now, the Europes have done a deal with, maybe the German Euros. They've done a deal, I think, with Kazakhstan, another country with a sterling human rights rights record. And I think the Kazakhstan stuff gets pumped across Turkey. Yeah, that they went in the same class, you know, they're all in the same class for human rights. But let's just park the human rights. Let's just settle that down a little bit at the moment. You know, the human rights is not the biggest thing at the moment. Keeping granny warm is. So we've got this state where the energy companies are saying is that winter of discontent from the 1970s. Well, I think it's entirely different. That was caused by a strike of the miners, and there wasn't enough coal stocks at the time. A lot of the electric was being generated from coal. Well, you know, the greenies have got their way. All of the coal power stations have been shut down or mothballed, or, you know, they're just not anymore. It's natural gas, because 2 or 3 things. Natural gas is cheaper, and also it circumnavigates, i.e. cuts out the need for any stroppy old union people. The Conservative government were really scared of this. That's what happened when Ted Heath was the Prime Minister. When Margaret Thatcher became Prime Minister, then she made sure that the power stations all had heaps of coal. I believe They were even importing it from Poland at the time. Subsequently, the miners fought a long and very, very bitter dispute, and it was about mine closures. I'm not too sure in the context of the Greenies now how they would view it if that hadn't happened, i.e. the mines had still been open. Would the Greenies be saying, yeah, we need to get shut of all these coal mines, stuff the miners, put them on the dole heap? Or would the Greenies be going, I'm not too sure, thousands of people involved? It's easy now because how the gas gets imported, you're not putting as many people out of a job. Well, not in the UK, you're not. Put somebody else out of a job in another country. That seems to be okay. The gas is cheaper, and we've been building windmills all over. Let's kill some more birds. Yeah, windmills seems to be the way that they want to go. Apart from places in the country that don't want the windmills, like central London doesn't want any windmills there. Not. We are using all this electricity, but we don't want any, and certainly we don't want any nuclear power stations anywhere close to London. Thank you very much. Keep them away. Keep them windmills away. Kind of put it in Hyde Park or Green Park, and none of these places. Get rid of them windmills. Put them up with the northern monkeys, in Wales and Scotland and anywhere else, but not where we want to live. So the windmills, they are like the windmills of your mind. There was a crack picture that was with Steve McQueen and I can't remember what was the woman, some woman in it, driving in a beach buggy. And she was in Thomas Crown Affair. She was in the Thomas Crown Affair too, as well as the psychiatrist or some doctor, maybe, who knows. Getting off track here. And the windmills of your mind, we're covering the country with windmills. And how green is my valley, I'm not too sure. Bearing in mind that, the windmills are all made with precision engineering, steel and mortars and copper, and it's all got to be mined. Big bases full of concrete, stuff like that. Yeah, but the energy's going to be green. And the wind, it's windy every day. Yeah, no problem. So we're at this stage of possible energy blackouts. Who knows? The lucky at the moment, we cannot even make enough lucky in the country for ourselves. We've subcontracted that out. Whole country subcontracted out. They cannot make anything. We've got 4 people in the Middle Kingdom making all our mobile phones. All them people out in the Far East making all our clothes. The people in Algeria growing our tomatoes. Nothing that can be done in this country should not be exported job-wise and stuff like that. So we import our electricity. We make a lot of it ourselves, to be fair, but we import bits of it from them really nice people, them French people. Bonjour, comment allez-vous, la plume de ma tante. And here is your bill for the electricity. We'll get some from the Belgians, along with a load of chocolates. And with the Dutch as well. The Dutch, or Hollanders, or Netherlanders, whatever one they want. Use whichever term. Apparently the Dutch is only like one part of Holland. Was it Holland's only one part of Dutchland? Netherlands. It's the Netherlands. It's these different lands all put together in the Netters. But they've got more electricity than they need, along with the tulips, and they send it across to us, and here presto, we buy it. It's the same with the gas. I mean to say, when you see it, it's just, you can't believe it, but it's true. We produce about 50% of the gas that we need. We've got gas fields in the North Sea, got a lot in the southern North Sea, offshore, Norwich, and well, Norwich is in the middle, offshore Great Yarmouth area, I suppose. Then the East Coast, we've got some fields up in the north producing associated gas. But we get about 30% of our electricity from them nice Norwegians. And we've been getting gas from the Norwegians since the North Sea, up in the North Sea, basically started. with the Frigg field years and years ago in the 70s. So it's not a new thing from Norway. And I think Norway likes to have long-term contracts with people. The Norwegians are bending over backwards, apparently, and they're trying to produce as much as they can, because the nice people in Brussels, the Euros, they've asked them produce more. We want to shut you down, but at the moment we need more. Because we've decided not to buy any more gas and oil from the Ruskies because of whatever's happening in Ukraine, which is a war, which is not good, and which hopefully should have never have been started. The best thing that can happen now is to make some sort of peace agreement, wherever seems fair to both sides. It's impossible for me to say I'm not Ukrainian, I'm not Russian. He ain't got a dog in the fight. So, it's up to them to agree it, but, holy lads, get this thing sorted out. The rest of the gas we import it. I think it's Milford Haven. There's a big degassing area there. A lot of it comes from places like Ghana. There's a big field there. It's called the North Field, and it is absolutely gigantic, enormous. It's a fabulous field for gas. It's one of the biggest in the world, and you need these tankers, these LNG tankers that sort of cool the gas down, sort of freeze the gas down, so it goes liquid, and then they sail it round. Even though the ship hasn't got any sails, well, they diesel it round to Milford Haven, and it gets regasified. You need a regasification plant, and that's what the nice Euro people have been buying, these ships, which have like a decasification facility on them. So the situation is electric. We cannot generate enough ourselves, so we should either be building more windmills, or we should be building more nukes. It takes like yonkos to do that, and apparently we haven't got the technology, I think, anymore to do them ourselves. We're too busy watching TikTok videos and stuff like that. So we're in league with the nice French people. Is the croissant, le tableau on beer. Here is the bill for the power station, nuclear. And I think we're dealing with the Middle Kingdom people. They'll love exporting stuff. So looks like we haven't got the technology anymore, so we've got to get other people in to build the nuclear power stations. I'm not too sure what the UK's capabilities are with building the windmills, whether we've got to import the blades from places like some places in Europe, Denmark or somewhere like that, Sweden or somewhere. Or we're making them ourselves. Hopefully we are, because we're going to need millions of these windmills. But I believe the government's put the coal-fired power stations back on notice. Yeah, we sacked us all, and we were cock-a-hoop, because the green thing, we've managed to get rid of coal. Don't need coal-powered stations. These can all go around the Dole office, get on the Dole heap. Can we just reverse that? Can we get us all back and get them coal-powered stations? The disappointing thing is that the attitude of the media, but then again, you can argue about the media doesn't create problems, but it loves bigging them up. So the media's in a tizzy. When is it not? It's jumping up and down now. We might have blackouts in the winter time, and you've got these crazy interviewers interviewing the Prime Ministeress, Lizzie Truss, and asking her questions. Can you guarantee that there won't be any blackouts? Well, anybody that answers yes needs a session with the Clement Freuds, or whatever it is, or whatever the Freud guy is, the psychiatrist, because it's an impossibility to say that. What happens if this Norwegian gas line gets blown up by whoever and you lose 30% of your gas? What happens then? Okay, you repair it, but it could take a couple of weeks to repair. Or what happens if the nice French people and Belgian people and detectives in the Cluggy people in Holland they say, well, we're running out of lecky in our country, we're going to ban exports of it. What happens if that happens? What happens if there's a problem on one of the big power stations, one of the nukes or whatever it is? What happens if the wind doesn't blow as much as what you thought it was going to blow? You know, that we get a really, really severe winter and we need huge amount of the lecky. It's impossible for any person to say that they can guarantee that there won't be any blackouts. What they should be saying is, I can't guarantee it. Of course, it's a possibility, but it's unlikely. And these are the reasons why it's unlikely. That doesn't seem to be enough for the reporters and the TV people. And, you know, they're stamping up and down saying, you know, you can say whatever you like, you know, the guarantee's not worth a light. And the other thing that they want is even more insane, is I want the government to tell people to turn the lights off. Like, the lecky is really expensive, so why would people be having electric things on in the house and using stuff if they could possibly? Well, no, it's the government's fault. It's the government's fault. I mean, to say this is akin to someone going out and walking about in the rain and then coming back in and saying, well, it was raining, but I still went outside and I got soaking. It's the government's fault. The government should have told us that it was raining, so I could have put a raincoat on or took an umbrella. I mean, to say we've reached a level of whatever level that you want to call it, but it's just like, it's a level of foolishness. If you've got big electric bills coming in, then most people, I would imagine, are self-restricting themselves. And maybe switch the central heating on half an hour later. Maybe they don't switch it on in the morning if they're going to work, and maybe they switch the radiators off in certain rooms, or switch them down in certain rooms. Maybe they switch the thermostat on the hot water tank if they've got one, or they switch the boiler temperature down on the boiler. Maybe they wear a jumper. Oh, you can't wear a jumper inside. I want to sit on my settee watching Netflix in me skiddies and a t-shirt. Well, yeah, we'll do that, but you've got to accept that you're going to pay more money because you're going to need to heat your house. But I'm not too sure. I don't know the differences in the energy costs and what difference it makes, but I would imagine people are doing those sort of things. You know, a lot of people maybe say they go to bed at 11 in the evening. Maybe they leave their central heating running to 11 so the house is comfortable. Well, maybe people might say, do I need to have it on to 11? Could I not switch it off at, say, 10:30 or 10 o'clock? Let the house cool down. The government shouldn't have to be telling you that. The government shouldn't have to be saying, switch the lights off in certain rooms. Don't use this, don't use that. I mean, to say, if that's what the TV companies and the TV companies tend to be ultra left-wing type crazy people anyway, but they seem to want the government to tell people everything, and if the government hasn't told you this, then you wouldn't do it. I mean, they're not even treating people like kids. They're treating people that, well, you know the words for it, but you know, it's just crazy. They seem to be divorced from wanting people to take any sort of responsibility for any of their actions. And they're saying, you know, the government should have an ad campaign. I would imagine a huge percentage of the population would just laugh at it and just say, you know, you're telling us something that we already know. The policy, I don't know enough about it, so I'm just shooting from the hip here. But one of the things the country used to have was it used to have storage capacity for gas. And the idea was there was a field off offshore Lincolnshire, just offshore Grimsby, which was the rough storage. And what used to happen there was in the summertime, when there wasn't much gas needed, then the gas fields could still produce gas. It's always easier just to keep things on a steady rate. And this gas via the transmission system throughout the UK could be rooted down and pumped and compressed and put back into the reservoir in the summertime. And during the summertime, the reservoir will build up, and you will be buying the gas at a comparatively cheaper rate because there's more of it, less demand, price goes down. Then in the winter time, when the cold snap and everybody's hitting the central heating and cranking it up, and there's a cold snap, the fields are being asked by British Gas to produce more. The price per therm or BTU or however they pay for it goes up, or cubic meter or whatever it is these days. Price goes up, but they've got all of this gas that they paid at a cheaper rate in the rough, and that can be used to bolster into to smooth out the demands. Well, obviously there's economic concerns, and a few years ago, I think 5 or 6 years ago, the rough became uneconomic. The view was that there was excess supply on the market, and that we didn't need our own in-house storage capacity to that extent. There's plenty of gas from Norway, plenty of gas. Russia is building another line. They're building this Nord Stream 2. There's loads of gas, you know. You can get it from Ghana, I think it's like Algeria, there's Kazakhstan. Why do we need to be storing it and stuff like that? Well, unfortunately, we've had a war. The West has put the sanctions on, and we've closed the rough storage, so we haven't got as much capacity. Will these things be looked at again? Yeah. The left-wing parties, the Socialist Labour Party, they want to nationalise. You know, if it moves, nationalise it, and if it doesn't move, still nationalise it. To be fair, I think they've got a reasonable case for certain elements of the power system coming under government control, possibly to allow some reasonably long-term planning. The difficulty I have with this blanket nationalisation is that I can remember when the electric and the gas and the water were nationalised, and the number of complaints that people had, the high costs, blah, 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 getting people to do work for them, the insane way that these companies were run. If they could somehow smarten that up, bring it up to what people would expect in the 2020s with online access and all of the rest of that sort of client public facing aspects of it, it may be something worth considering purely on the basis of national energy security. Will it happen? Will there be 3-hour blackouts? I don't know. It's impossible to tell. You know, you can get down to Laddies or somewhere and they'll give you odds on it, and that's probably about as good as you're going to get. It's impossible to say there won't be any blackouts. It's impossible to say that, you know, you can guarantee it either way. A lot of it depends on how severe the winter is. If it's mild winter, then you've got a bit of buffer. What's happened though is that you're putting yourself at the mercy of other countries. I mean, say Norway is a good partner. Right? Say Norway has supplied gas for the best part of nearly 50 years to the UK, 40, 50 years from Friggs. Just about finished now. But these other fields, they've got other fields that they can link into these gas lines, which come across, I think it's up to St Fergus or somewhere in Scotland, and it goes into the national grid transmission system. So you've got all of this going on. But for the electricity, it just seems we shouldn't be dependent on France or Belgium or Holland or the Netherlands, whatever term you want to use for. Shouldn't be dependent on these other countries where we've got no control. And I'm sure that the French wouldn't do it lightly. You know, I mean, so there's always tends to be a bit of friction between the British government and the French government. But I think at the upper levels, I think that they're reasonable people on both sides, and they do try and assist each other. There's always going to be friction because of past historical things. But if the French did that and said, no, we're not exporting electricity out of the country, then that, it rings alarm bells. I don't think they would want to do it, because what that would then happen is that Britain would then be in a state of going, well, okay, you've cut off once, we're going to build what we want. We're putting you on notice that we're not going to take electricity. We don't want French electricity anymore. It's difficult to know. The wind, how many more windmills can you build? Well, loads. Some of the offshore windmill, there's hundreds. At the rate that's going, there's not going to be a seabird left in the world. So these things just wipe out birds and stuff like that. But the greenies love them. Greenies and Greta, they love them and stuff like that. And you've got to realise that the Greens have a disproportionate sort of hand on the tiller. A lot of these things are being made. It's going to have nixall. That's my personal opinion. It's going to have nixall effect on climate change, global warming, whatever term you want to use. Feel free, to make any difference to me. The amount of coal which is being used is a record. Australian coal, Newcastle coal from the eastern coast of Australia, up north of Sydney. They're exporting massive amounts of that to Japan and to China, Middle Kingdom. The Japanese like the high quality coal. I'm not too sure what the term is, the 6600 coal or whatever it is. And the Chinese like the other cheaper grade, because their power stations and that are set up to accept the lower grade. I think it's 5500 or whatever it is. But Australia is exporting loads. China is opening new coal mines. India is using more coal. I'm not suggesting that it isn't a good thing to reduce the coal and the oil. What I'm saying is it's not going to make any difference in the UK, because these other countries, the Chinas, the Indias, the Japans, the Koreas, that are using more and more coal, it's not going to make any difference. It's not like there's a big perspex sort of screen around the UK, and the air in the UK is just stays in the UK. It floats around the world. You say, well, that's a negative view. You're saying we shouldn't do anything. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is all of this effort that you're putting in, destroying your industries, putting people out of work, allegedly making more jobs in the greeny industries, isn't going to have one iota of difference on wherever temperatures or sea levels or whatever, because the elephant, and it's not just the elephant, it's the herd of elephants in the Far East, it will trample on anything that you've done. You've got them nice noggies in Noggie Land, and they all driving around in the electric vehicles, and it's going to be 100%. And Norway is a really nice country, and they've got really high standards. And a lot of the lecky in the country comes from hydroelectric, as does Sweden's. In northern Sweden, a lot of it comes from hydroelectric. In southern Sweden, it comes from nukes. But Norway is extracting all of the oil and gas that it can. It's sovereign wealth. Its sovereign wealth fund, which gets its money from the taxes and the profits on the oil and gas companies which operate in the Norwegian sector, on the Norwegian shelf. It won't invest in other oil and gas companies and stuff like that. So they're getting the money from the oil and gas, and they're investing it. And that's up to them. They can do with it whatever they want. And they will, because they're a small population in a rich country. They will turn these things around, and they'll go super green. They'll be greener than green. They'll be greener than grass in Norway. There wouldn't be any petrol cars, and there wouldn't be any diesels, and it'll be super duper. And whatever Norway's done won't make any difference, because the air will be coming from the Middle Kingdom and from India and from all them places. I mean, they said they've done studies on some of these. Is it the Maldives or somewhere? These little islands in the middle of the sort of Indian Ocean and stuff like that. They get the pollution from India. So you're going, well, that's negative. we should be working towards. I'm not disagreeing with it. I'm just saying all of the things that we are doing, all of these, putting the blunderbuss up against your foot and, pulling the old triggeroni. Yeah, change over. But I think the timescales which are being given is far too dramatic. The UK government's opening up more tracts of the continental shelf, which the UK comes under the UK's jurisdiction to exploration, and the likelihood is that they will find more that will be extracted. It's at the present time, the oil is calorific value is just so much in its favour that all of the oil and gas which is known about will be extracted, whether it takes 10 years, 20 years, or 100 years. My view is that it's all coming out, drill baby drill. By that time, who knows? All the cars might be electric. The thing that you need the oil for, though, is the feedstocks for the chemical industry, same as the natural gas, the methane, which gets produced, used in so many chemicals and fertilizers. Can you do it other ways? Yes, you can. Is it more expensive doing it the other ways? Yes, it surely is. Will people make a load of money if they're forced to do it that way? You beat it, of course they will. There's just so much money lying there through these green initiatives and stuff like that. And with the greenies putting a hand on the tiller, forcing these things to happen at such a quick rate, as companies, investment companies, making a lot of money out of this race to go green. Would it be better going green? Yeah, of course it would be. Who's going to argue about pollution? Who wants pollution? Who wants all the dirty stuff? Nobody, really. Not to live in anyway, and stuff like that. But I just think that we're racing down the road that we don't need to be racing down. Maybe we should be walking down the road, maybe at a reasonable pace. But we've got these arbitrary dates, 2050. What's the difference between 2049 and 2051? 2 years. Why not? Oh, let's bring it forward. People are playing top trumps, we'll ban all the cars by the IC cars, internal combustion engine cars, by 2045. Well, we can do it by 2040. We do it by 2035. And I think in the land of the green California eyes, I'm not too sure if they've come up with 2030, 2035. They haven't got enough electricity in California yet to charge all of, if all of the cars end up being electric at the moment. But the situation in the private funding of the electric companies in California, you start thinking that this, stammers from the left-wing Labour Party, and it might have some legs, might be some advantages in it, where you can structurally set the things up, or you can try and do it the other way and give the companies incentives. But to say they've had power blackouts in California, land of the free and the homeless. It's a big problem. But wrapping this up, will there be blackouts this winter? I don't know. Can you guarantee it either way? No. Anybody who does is putting themselves in a straitjacket. Is there options? Yeah, the options are increase the oil and gas production in the UK, build more terminals for import. Oh, there you go. Is there any way that you can? But is there any way that we can use some of the coal in this country? Is there any ways of burning it where, even though it mightn't be as economic, is there any ways that we can do this where it doesn't create as much pollution and CO2? Don't know, But the papers have just went overboard today. They just went crazy. Here's a selection of some of them. A winter of discontent. Yeah, that's from the Metro. That's very balanced. The Telegraph, the UK has warned it could face winter blackouts. Power could be cut for 3 hours a day if Britain is unable to import enough energy. Yeah. The Ally, electricity blackout warning this winter, rolling blackouts, millions of homes, blah, blah, blah. First blackout since the 70s. Well, yes, but if you live in a country area, you'll be well aware that you can get electricity outages when they had high winds and stuff like that. A lot of people well, so it's a right. It's national blackouts and stuff like that. The Mirror and hard left, Stalinist paper. Oh, they've got a cheery picture on the front page of what's it? Oh, pub in Newcastle in the 1970s. Seeing if there's anybody I know. It shows you how old the photo is. The signs in the pub are Vaux, and I think they went out of business a few years ago. Yeah, there was a few bars in Newcastle with Vaux pubs. There used to be one beside the Central Library, the Man in the Moon, or something it was called. He went down the stairs. I can't remember that from the Vaux pub because I had double maximum in there. And box and it was Vaux's sort of version of Brown Dog. What are they saying? Warning over the blackouts. So return to the dark ages. Britain faces power cuts, blah, blah, blah. Households may be paid to not use home appliances at peak times. Crisis is a direct consequence of Tory politics. The Mirror uses that all the time.
Alert from the reminders.
That's the reminders. The Guardian, rolling power cuts. It must be a laugh a minute in their newsroom. Could put lives at risk. They're the first paper that's mentioning lives at risk. Charities tell the National Grid. I'm not making light of it. Yes, depends. Some poor people. You'd like to hope that there would be some method. Don't know how you do it. Like people on these life support machines or dialysis and stuff. I don't know. Obviously, they've got enough time to get all of these people on a register and see if there's ways around it. I don't know what the solutions are, but you can bet your bottom dollar that the Guardian will be on the case, and rightly so. The Mail, blackout deal sparks a storm. Families are being offered a tenner a day to avert power cuts. You've got to have one of these smarty meters. Got to have an M&M. Yeah. People didn't realise they can switch your lecky off with the door, so I use people that's got their smart meters. And there you go. Most people wouldn't be spending, surely, but I've got the idea, £10 a day on a lecky. It's a lot. £70 a week, £180 a month, just on a lecky. I can't understand if it had gas. Just, I don't know. Daily Express or Homes face 3-hour winter power. Knock yourselves out with the headlines. It's plunged into darkness. Yeah. Daily Star, new advice to stop the blackout Britain. Wash your grundies at midnight. Do chores at bedtime or face 3-hour power cuts. You'll be getting these people on the social WhatsApp, Twitter, Zip Zapper, whatever they're called, TikTokies. They'll all be screaming and shouting and virtue signaling. Yes, I got up at midnight to do so I could use the Hoover. You've just got to expect it. That's just the way of the world it is nowadays. Gas import threat puts the UK at risk of blackouts. What's this from the Timesies? PM blocks, or she's blocking it. Energy saving information. I'm not going to tell you about the energy information. Please tell us to switch the lights out. Apparently it would have cost £15 million, or surely the £15 million. I'm amazed that the one of the other parties hasn't dashed in and stuff like that, or somebody hasn't said, yeah, we can ring fence that £15 million, we'll spend it on nurses, on biscuits for the nurses. Yeah, I think the nurses deserve more money, yes. The campaign was a light touch, 3 measures could save people £300 a year, possibly. Lowering the temperature of your boiler. Wow, as though people haven't thought of that one yet. Turning off radiators in empty rooms. Wow, that one's, nobody would have thought of that. And advising people to turn off the heating when they go out. I mean, we've had a team of PhDs thinking of these ones up. In some ways, it depends how long you're out for and what temperature you've got your house set at. And the age of the people and stuff like that, but sometimes the savings that you make by switching your central heating off when you're just out for a couple of hours tends to be marginal. Sometimes your boiler's working excessively to bring it back up. It's impossible to say without looking at the system. But yeah, they're all good bits of advice. Yeah, I mean, say if you're out for 2 days, switch your central heating off, unless it's the middle of winter and it's like, it's -10, then you want to make sure that your system's sort of freeze protected. And they're bringing this thing up during the Tory runoff campaign. Truss insisted there would be no energy rationing. It's impossible for her to say that. It's just she's making herself a prisoner to saying stuff like that. I guarantee she refused to repeat yesterday. Oh, yeah, because she's now realised it's a distinct possibility. The FT, FT's not bothered about the electric prices. No, it's more bothered about the oil export ban from the Saudis. Yeah, Jimmy Biden. Is it Joe Biden? Is James or Joe? Yeah, Jay Biden anyway. Jay Biden, the head honcho from the Yankee Doodle Dandies, ended up in Saudi Arabia, and he fist bumped the Saudi king or emperor or prince or whatever it is crossing Saudi land, and he fist bumped him. Yeah, I'm gonna fist bump you, like like we're playing basketball or something like that. And Jay Biden doesn't look like he could play basketball these days. And the Saudi lad, he looked reasonably fit. Yeah, I think he could do a few slam dunks on the court. Anyway, the Saudi lad and Putin, boo, Putin, boo. Putin, they've agreed to reduce the producing oil. They want to keep the prices high, so that they're going to ratchet back the production. Jay Biden there, he'd been opening the taps up in the oil salt domes, I think, down in Louisiana, where they store the petroleum oil reserve, which is like a load of oil that they've got in case America ends up in bad way or has a war with somebody, so that there's enough oil there to keep the country going for, I don't know, 5 or 6 weeks. That is, it's 100 million barrels of oil or something, and America's. But you've got to remember, America is producing a load of oil, so this would just be to cover for the imports. I think it was for the American armed forces, make sure that they had plenty of them. A lot of their ships are nuclear and then big aircraft carriers and submarines. So there you go. Everything's a crisis. Everything's a crisis. So we'll wait till tomorrow, and there's be another crisis. Basically, a loaf of bread will be £3 or something. Who knows? It's impossible to say. But what you can be sure of is that the papers and the TV will be screaming about it. Yeah, it's the end of the world. Bread's with the £3 a loaf. More of that, you know what I mean? So there you go. So arrivederci, ciao. That's the Italian for saying true.